Biodiversity doesn't just appear. It's built over millions of years, shaped by geography, climate, ecological interactions, and other evolutionary influences. By uncovering the forces that create and constrain species distributions, my research adds to the foundation we use to explain Earth's diversity. My name is Sarah Morris, and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Vermont. I'm a botanist and a biodiversity scientist who studies the evolutionary history of plants, how they are related, how they adapt to survive, and the geographic influences that dictate where they grow. To understand why this matters, it helps to look at the uneven distribution of life on our planet. For example, Vermont, where I live, has fewer than 100 species of ferns and lycophytes. Costa Rica, which is only about twice the size of Vermont, has roughly 1,200. Making sense of all this diversity is a daunting but important task for biologists. Why are there so many species in the tropics? Ferns and lycophytes, with about 13,000 and 1,500 species respectively, are an important and often overlooked component of both tropical and temperate ecosystems. Ferns and lycophytes are seed-free, meaning that unlike the groups of plants that produce flowers or cones, they reproduce without seeds, fruits, or flowers, and instead reproduce via tiny dust-like spores that are about half the width of human hair. Because of the microscopic size of these spores, the prevailing historical idea has been that ferns and lycophytes have the capacity to disperse far and wide via wind currents. This idea is further supported by the presence of ferns and lycophytes on oceanic islands that exist hundreds or thousands of miles from the nearest continent. Given this high dispersibility, if we don't observe fern and lycophyte species ubiquitously, what factors are controlling the distribution of these plants? In this project, I worked with Robin Moran, Curator Emeritus of the New York Botanic Garden, to produce, for the first time, a documented list of the fern and lycophyte species in Mesoamerica that extend into western Colombia and/or Ecuador and are restricted by the Andes from occurring farther eastward. Or more simply, species with a Mesoamerican Western Andean distribution. In an analysis of the world's top biodiversity hotspots for terrestrial plants and animals, 3 of the top 5 hotspots are a part of, or overlap with, the Mesoamerican Western Andean distribution. This species-rich region has attracted botanists and biogeographers for centuries, including the late Al Gentry, whose work and ideas allowed for and inspired much of this project. The list was built from decades of studying dried plant specimens housed in herbaria, which are essentially dried plant libraries. We also consulted with taxonomic experts, reviewed published species descriptions, and utilized specimen datasets from around the globe in online data repositories to further refine the list. We found 131 species with a Mesoamerican Western Andean distribution that are restricted eastward by the Andes. Combined with estimates for the endemic species west of the Andes in Colombia and Ecuador, aka the species that only occur there and don't extend into Mesoamerica, almost a quarter of all species in this region are restricted in their movement eastward by the Andes Mountains. Additionally, in Colombia, where the Andes split into 3 distinct ranges, we found that the westernmost range was the most important in blocking species movements. Our list shows that although usually exhibiting larger geographic distributions compared to flowering plants, fern and lycophyte species show significant geographic restriction by mountain ranges. This list is far more than a catalog of plants. It is a starting point for solving urgent biological questions. Now that we know exactly which species are restricted, we can use genetic analyses to determine why. Using molecular data, we can estimate how long ago species diverged from one another and compare that to what we know about the timing of geologic events, such as the rise of the Andes Mountains. Did these species evolve after mountain uplift, or did rising peaks physically split once connected populations in 2? My research ties together geography, Earth history, and biology to decode the evolution of life on Earth. But more importantly, it provides a roadmap. As climate change forces species to migrate and adapt to survive, we can begin to understand how geographic features have historically blocked or permitted the movement of life. By decoding the past, we gain insights policymakers and conservationists need to protect our planet's biodiversity. These findings were published in the Annals of the Missouri Botanical Garden. I extend my gratitude first and foremost to my co-author, Robin Moran, whose deep botanical knowledge and gift for science communication are a constant source of inspiration. I also thank the many taxonomic experts who consulted on this project, and the extended network of fern nerds around the globe, without whom this work would not have been possible. Thanks for watching!